Welcome back to the Sibling Group Chat. I'm Owen.
And I'm Cassidy.
Today we are back at it with the Odyssey review, episode 60, The Imagination Station. It's a big number.
Yes, number 60. Crazy. Anyway, these are the 66th and 67th episodes of Adventures in Odyssey. They originally aired on March 18th and 25th, 1989, and they are part of Album 5, Daring Deeds, Sinister Schemes. And in this episode, or episodes, with the help of Wit's new invention, young Digger Digwillow travels back in time to witness the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And our themes are salvation and the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So, like I said,
Imagination Station isn't part of the theme?
No, I guess not. But yeah, so as I said, this is in album 5. Not really sure what their thinking was on it, unless they just felt like it didn't fit their overall theme of album 4, Fundamentals. Because most of album 4,
I feel like it does fit Fundamentals.
Salvation. I don't know. I feel like
yeah.
I don't know. I guess you could argue it does, but I think everything else that happens in the album doesn't apply till after Salvation. So
It's true.
And also, the Imagination Station is quite relevant in album 5 with everything that will happen there. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can just hop into the episode. There's not really any intro or anything to it. It just starts with Wit is hard at work in the Bible room, and Tom comes in looking for him. Finds Wit working on a new invention, the Imagination Station. And Tom makes some remark about, like, Wit's always working on a new invention every time he comes into the Bible room. But Tom came in specifically looking for Wit because he needs advice on how to help a kid from his Sunday school class, Digger Digwillow, who is just real antsy and distracting in Sunday school class, which Wit finds hard to believe because Tom is one of the most interesting Sunday school teachers around.
For one thing, Wit, aren't you around kids enough to know that no matter how interesting the teacher is, they could be antsy class? Number 2, I guess Tom is now a full-time Sunday school teacher because at the beginning of the album, he was a fill-in Sunday school teacher. Mrs. Grayson just out completely. They're like, look, these kids don't need to be learning Greek, so we're going to fire Mrs. Grayson. And Tom Riley.
I mean, it might not be a bad idea. Was that her name? Was it Mrs. Grayson? Or are you thinking of Connie's Bible study leader? Because his name was Mr. Grayson.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's Grayson, though.
Who knows? But anyway, yeah, I mean, yeah, Tom would be more interesting than the other lady. So.
And honestly, I never really thought about till just this moment that Digger was in. If Digger is most likely he was in that lady Sunday school class, like no wonder he's antsy in class. Even if Tom is an interesting teacher, if that's what he was used to.
Right? Yeah, it's like
and if he has to
the Bible's boring.
Reynolds every day. Was that the kid's name?
Yeah.
Reynolds? Yeah.
Hey, I think it was. It was Reynolds.
Yeah, Reynolds. What's Greek?
But I mean, we find out later Digger's parents have tried to like show him the interesting parts of the Bible. It hasn't really worked out either.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Wit suggests to Tom that Digger come and try out his new invention, the Imagination Station, because it's supposed to help kids use their imagination and hopefully can make stuff like the Bible more interesting. Obviously there's other stuff they use the Imagination Station for, but I feel like in general the idea is to help kids like have fun with their imagination and learn more about the Bible.
Yeah, it's definitely all about the imagination, or primarily. But for the most part, yeah, it is about learning more about the Bible or about history. Until, Jason gets a bit rogue. But in general, that's the primary point of the Imagination Station.
Yeah. But yeah, so Mr. Whitaker suggests to Tom that he suggests to Digger to come in and talk to Wit. And so I don't know if it's the same day or maybe a later day. I feel like it's a later day, but I don't know for sure.
Especially because it doesn't seem like Wit's done with it yet on this day.
That's true.
Still building it.
But yeah,
when is he ever done with the Imagination Station? So
I'm gonna say I don't think for one, what you said is like he's always tinkering with it, but also I feel like when Digger is in there, he's almost like working on it to make sure it keeps working the entire time Digger is in there.
That's true. And I also feel like, I mean, this is kind of the environment enhancer when Connie is actually testing it out. But I feel like because almost every Imagination Station episode, he has changed it slightly. Every kid, he's like, could you try this to see if it works? And I think that's honestly how he tricks some kids into using it because they're doing him a favor. It's not like he's like, I want you to go in here and learn this. It's, could you hop in here for me and just kind of see if everything's working out
Well, I mean,
okay?
yeah, that's part of the reason Mr. Whitaker is able to relate to kids and help them learn stuff so much is because he never outright says, "Learn this lesson for me, would you?"
Yeah.
Like kids don't realize very often anyway that they're learning something with Mr. Whitaker until they've learned something.
Yeah. It's all part of the plan.
The only episode I can think of that's different than that is the one with Kurt and Lucy playing Cell Perks or whatever because he tells them like it's going to be educational for you. Have
Yeah.
fun.
Mm-hmm. The only and another thing with the Imagination Station is you also have several instances now where this would be a full blown discussion about the Imagination Station in general, but like you have several instances of kids getting in it when they weren't supposed to. Like, Jack and
Yeah.
no, Robin and Jack get in there when they weren't supposed to. Um I feel like they're not the only ones. Or not even that they're not
Um,
supposed to, but they get in it without.
Rodney is in there once when he's not supposed to be.
That's true. And I feel like these other times when they get in not intending to go on an adventure, there's like, I'm just going to sit in here and pretend. I wonder what the red button does. Because I feel like that happens another time.
Yeah. In my mind, the red button is like this giant button in the middle,
Yeah.
and there's maybe a couple other little buttons, but it's like the only one that clearly does something, and that's the one kids are like, hmm.
Yeah. And it'll even be like, oh, Mr. Whitaker has changed everything in here. I don't know what button to hit. I guess I'll hit the red one. Of course, hit the flashing red one. Like, they always act like they're surprised that it works. So why wouldn't it be that one?
It would also be like Mr. Whitaker to put like random buttons that don't do anything in there just for the fun of it.
Yeah, just
Or
for the
like
kids.
have buttons that don't actually do anything yet, but like he has an idea for what he's gonna do with that button later.
Yeah. All of this to say that imagination is
Also,
ever evolving. And the premise that gets kids
true.
into it is
Can
also
I ask a
ever
question?
evolving.
I understand that if you think too much about it, it just gets more confusing with the imagination station. But like, I don't even know if you want to get into this, but how does it work with like they are going places in the imagination station? They are moving around in the imagination station. Do they never like run into the buttons? Like, how do they like? Can they see the red button next to them at all times? Like,
I
how
think
does this
they're
work?
imagining moving around, like in a dream or something. Like you could be walking around in a dream, and most of the time you're not actually walking.
Yeah, that's
Like
fair.
I don't think they're physically
sense.
moving because going
Yeah,
back to Jason going rogue, if Zachary in his imagination was walking, there's no way he was actually
that's
physically
true.
walking.
Yeah,
It's just they're imagining that they're
I,
doing
I,
these things.
that is honestly one of my least favorite Adventures in Odyssey
It's
episodes,
true
like ever.
because you're like, why, Jason? You know better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just kind of how Jason rolls, though. Jason's whole attitude, whole like, is just like Jason.
He
Eh,
he takes
really?
the Whitaker mentality of let's see if this thing works to a whole nother level.
Yeah. Okay, we should probably hop back into the story.
Probably. But it's the first Imagination Session episode.
Oh,
We had to discuss the adventure.
yeah, I actually have one more thing, but I bring it up later because Digger mentioned something that I wanted to ask about too.
Okay.
So yeah, Digger Digwillow comes in to talk to Mr. Whitaker, and Wit says that he may have something for him that could help him find the Bible more interesting. And Digger's like, I highly doubt that. Like, I've read parts of the Bible. My parents have tried to show me the interesting parts of the Bible. I know all the stories. It's all boring. Can I go read comic books? Like,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
care
it's
what you
funny
have for me.
when he asked about comic books, and Mr. Whitaker says, "Oh, we don't need comic books in the Bible room." And I was like, I feel like we're gonna get to the point later in the show where comic books in the Bible room would not be an issue. Like, just you wait till there's arcade games downstairs. This is just a Jason bashing episode, I guess. But like, what's the way he says, "Oh, we don't need comic books"? Like, I feel like comic books are just not that crazy compared to some of the things that are later gonna go on here.
Well, and I don't think he's necessarily meaning comic books are bad. I think he's just meaning like you don't need comic books. Like that's not the only kind of like
Yeah.
reading or anything that is interesting.
Yeah, I know. I just found it funny, especially as I was thinking of like, there's like the action Bible that's like literally a comic book Bible. And I was like, this is what Digger
Right.
needed was the action Bible.
Right. But I also think because like Digger asks like, what are you gonna like sit me down and tell me a story? Like you gonna have me listen to a story? Like Digger has clearly been exposed to many different ways of trying to get him to read or listen to the Bible, and it
Hmm.
just doesn't work. Um, and I think I think it's like an interesting point. Like I feel like for Digger, it's just like he's never actually found something in the Bible that interested him, so he just assumes the entire thing is boring.
Hmm.
And maybe it was because it was a little bit forced on him too. But I
Yeah.
think for the imagination station, whether it's the Bible or something else historically related, it's generally going to be something that like you have to find a way to make that thing interesting for you, and the imagination station theoretically does that for kids.
Yeah. And I think this also kind of speaks to, this is like a whole other topic, but like different learning styles. Because
Right.
Digger, I'm sure, well, we even kind of find out as the story goes on, he knows this story. But for him to like
Yeah.
physically learn it and be in it and be a part of it helps it click in his head more. Just like some people learn better by reading,
Right.
by writing, by
Well,
hearing, doing.
like I say, he's definitely at least definitely a visual learner because when he's seeing the story, that's what's helping him remember what's coming next. Or like, yeah, that's probably why I like comic books too. Actually.
Yeah. Yep. Just a visual learner.
Yep. But I like how because when Wit suggests like he has this invention for him, and I like how Digger just like compares it to like looking like a time machine because I just think it's kind of funny because I feel like that's the biggest borderline problem with the imagination station is like where's the line between the imagination station just being imagination and it being a time machine?
I think it's always that like you always know nothing's really like they're not really going back and they're always going to come right back to where they were, which I mean in a time machine theoretically you're going right back to where you were. But I think they can get away with
Right.
whatever by saying it's happening in the imagination, not it's happening in real life. So you can
Right. I
operate it
just thought it was
completely
funny.
as
Like
a
I didn't
time.
remember.
Yeah.
I just didn't remember that like he said something about it because I think that's the biggest like borderline. Like if you were gonna have an issue like as a listener with
Hmm.
Imagination Station episodes, it would be that it's like borderline a time machine, and there could theoretically be problems with that. Or
Yeah.
like, obviously, the Imagination Station is not completely possible. There, I mean, you could like get into like getting close with like VR and stuff these days, but like, obviously, you're never gonna have an Imagination Station.
Hmm.
But like that idea anyway.
Yeah. And I think they were really smart to come up with this. Honestly, like you think of like movies and stuff, all these things that have attempted to like have their different versions of time travel. By saying this all happens in the imagination, you can get away with literally anything because we've established it's not really happening, and so there's almost no rules then at that
Right.
point, which is kind of cool. And then they
I
can
say there's
explore things.
it's not like in Avengers Endgame when they have to figure out how time travel actually works. They're talking about like time travel, like stories and movies, and they're like, wait, so all of this is just like made up? That's not actually how time travel works? Like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, by saying it happens in the imagination, you don't have to worry about any of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I do
So
like his
Digger
line
gets
of
in.
I like his line like just climb in, press a couple buttons, use your imagination, and anything can happen. And I think this is really a good setup for what the imagination station is going to be, and also emphasizing that it is part of the machine and also part of you, the person who's using it. Like it's both.
Right. And I've always wondered, and I feel like we maybe had mentioned this before, like how much the person taking the adventure influences their experience in the imagination station.
Yeah, I think we have discussed that, and I think the only way to know this for sure, and it would be cool to see, would be to hear the same person, two people take the
Multiple
same
kids go on the
adventure.
same adventure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just like I want to know like how much of the adventure is controlled by the program and how much of it is influenced by the kid's imagination. Because like if some kid went in there and they're like, you know what, I don't have any imagination, and they don't do hardly anything to like contribute to their experience, what does the imagination station do for them, or does it not do anything for them? Like, does
Sure.
the kid have to participate in the adventure?
Yeah, because like as we're going to see, there's never been a kid that we see in the show who just sits there and refuses to take part in the adventure. What would happen
Right.
if say we're gonna get a few minutes? Digger gets plopped down in downtown Jerusalem. What if he had just sat there? What would have happened?
Right. Like, if Digger gets trampled by the crowd, does that end the adventure?
I feel I feel like this has been discussed on the Facebook fan club. Like, what happens if you die in imagination station? Can you die in the imagination station?
Or what if you go rogue and you're like, I don't want to go to John Mark's house. I want to go see the Dead Sea. Peace out.
I feel like in this point in time, it wouldn't work. Like, it would like glitch out or something. It'd be like a video game that like plops you back to the beginning. But later in the
You're
show,
like,
when it
you have
pulls,
left the map. Please return to the map.
yeah, because I feel like the technology is limited this minute. But later, when they import it, like the
Yeah.
machine like self creates adventures, then you could probably go rogue in it, but not yet at this point in time.
So you're telling me they haven't created an open world imagination station yet at this point?
At this point, no. But later, when Wit like connects it with the internet and stuff, then yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Back to Digger again.
Uh, yeah, back to Digger. He has gotten in and gone back to downtown Jerusalem. He's in the middle of a busy street, and I just think it's funny because obviously this is getting to the like how much your imagination influences it. Because he's looking around and he sees all these people. He's like, "Wow, where did all this come from? Like, how is there this much space in the Bible room? Did we get transported to back of Wit's Head? Like, is there just a middle of Jerusalem set up out back?"
And I feel
And
like
when people start talking to him, he like assumes they're actors or something.
yeah, and I feel like he's not the only kid to ever think this. Although most other kids,
You were about to say he was the first one, and I was gonna say, yeah, he is the first one actually.
I was about to say the first one. I was like, he is the first one. He's not the only one, but it is really funny how confused he is. And I thought it was funny, even like we have the chaotic imagination station. Whoa, whoa, whoa! They know that happens to everybody. And then it stops, and he's like, "I've been in baby strollers that were better than that." I need to start using that phrase for like stuff like, "Man, I've been in baby strollers better than that."
Yeah. But yeah, because like a woman gets him out of the street, and he's like rambling about Wit's End and Odyssey, and like he doesn't know where he is. Which one of the best parts about Imagination Station Adventures is how clueless people are about what you're talking about. I just think it's always funny.
The best is like
I did think it was funny. None of them even knew where Odyssey was. Like usually
true.
Odyssey is connected to Greece.
I gotta say the best is when they're like, "Oh, you're from Greece." That is never not funny to me, but this one is pretty
I
funny.
know. How are you from Odyssey but not from Greece? I don't remember which one that is, but there's one where they're like, I'm from Odyssey. It's like, you're Greek.
One.
No, I'm not Greek.
It's the one Paul and Onesimus.
It might be Onesimus.
Yeah. Because finally
Greek?
Nicholas
No.
starts going,
how are you from Odyssey and not
never
Greek?
Yeah. My favorite one here is, maybe I'm getting slightly ahead of ourselves, but this lady who pulled him on the street, her name is Mary. She's not the Mary or the other the Mary. This is a fictional Mary. But anyway, she takes him back to her home and he meets her son, John Mark. And when John Mark is criticizing his clothes, and he's like, "What, is this a new fabric?" He's like, "No, they're jeans." Made by Levi Strauss. He's like, "Oh, Jewish."
Levi Strauss. He's like, oh, he's Jewish.
It's a great
I did think that was funny. It is. Because he's like, oh, I'm not surprised. It looks like good stuff, you know.
Yeah, of course it would be a Jew.
You ever think about though, like along those lines, the first person to ever wear something made of denim, people probably did be like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. I never really thought about it, but you're right. Yeah.
You know. Anyway, then, as if Digger's experience isn't confusing enough, while he's at the house, Mr. Whitaker just starts talking to him. He's like, I don't even, what does he say? He hears Whit's voice. Digger keeps like asking questions, and they like think he's lost, and they're gonna help him. But then he hears Mr. Whitaker's voice, so he like goes through a door. He's like, he must be through this door, and then he finds himself in a closet. But like, I feel like that's not helping him get through the confused part of an Imagination Station adventure where Mr. Whitaker is just like, "What up, nigger?"
Especially because Mr. Whitaker didn't tell him that ahead of time. Like, there's a few other times where Mr. Whitaker talks to kids in the Imagination Station, but he's like told them ahead of time that he can. Like, I think about like the
Yeah.
Lincoln one where Jimmy goes back and Mr. Whitaker gives him a remote for that one and also tells him like he's there. I don't know. I thought it was funny.
Well, and he also like tells him like you can't change it, but like he doesn't tell Digger that he can do that, and so Digger also doesn't know that Wit isn't there with him.
Yeah.
Partially because he doesn't know exactly where there is, but
yeah. I wonder where home is. But no, when he starts talking to Mr. Whitaker, I thought it was really funny when Mary was like, maybe he's sun-stricken. And it made me think of the very first Noel. Maybe it's heat stroke or desert delusion.
Desert delusion. A new king is coming.
And then they all fled. Was it something I said?
Was it something I said? Yeah. But so when he comes out of the door he went through, he's in a closet, so obviously not the same door he went through. The Imagination Station has teleportation abilities.
Yeah, and it has a thing for closets.
Like, it does, yeah.
I think it's just
Closets
a good way
and,
to explain plopping a kid somewhere. Because if it plopped him, in the room with the Last Supper, then you'd have the disciples being like, where did this guy come from? So you can't.
Yeah.
I think it puts people in closets so that people don't see them appear.
There's that, and then I also think you could theoretically get stuck in a closet. Like, closets don't always open both ways.
Yeah, so if you find somebody in a closet, you're not going to... you're going to ask where they came from, but your first worry is going to be like, oh no, I got to get this person out of the closet and stuck in there.
Yeah, like, get out of the closet. What are you doing in there? How'd you get in there? But yeah, so when he comes out, it's the night of the Passover, and so they invite Digger to help serve, I guess, or maybe he offers. No, they make him. I don't think they invite him. Yeah, John Mark makes him, but they make him dress normally first. Normal to them. Not what he was wearing was not abnormal for him.
Yes. But it was a Jewish tailor, so couldn't have
It's true, yeah. So they go up to serve the Passover to the master, and the people are confused. Hold on, my notes are all over the place.
I know. I kind of didn't take great notes.
I just thought Digger still thinks they're like acting.
Mm-hmm. Like, okay, fine, I'll play
along. He says something about that, but they go up and give the bread and wine to Jesus or the master. They don't actually say his name yet. If you know the story, you know it's Jesus. If you don't know the story, as Digger still doesn't know to this point, he doesn't know for sure that it's Jesus, I don't think. Yeah. And once they leave, Digger starts talking to John Mark about the master because, like, when he had handed him I think it was the bread, right, that Digger had handed him.
Yeah. Then again, for those of us who know it's actually happening, we come in and we hear Jesus start to be serving communion, or starting the Last Supper.
Yeah, and worth noting, they like passed Judas on their way in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was Judas not still there when they did communion?
I don't think. Well, I don't remember now. I know they were eating.
For some reason, I thought he was.
Well, they were eating food already because Jesus is like the man who I dipped this in the dish with or whatever. But I don't think he was doing like the actual like this body. This bread is my body broken for you. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
My Bible in my hand.
Yeah. Then so he's talking to John Mark about the master. And he's like, when he had handed him the bread, Jesus looked at him, and he was like, it was as if he was looking like inside him, and he was like confused, like what exactly was that? And John Mark is like, he's looking inside you with love.
Mm-hmm.
And he says really like many have felt it too. Like it wasn't just him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Digger, throughout their conversation, asks John Mark to go see him again, but John Mark says they've already left. They'd gone to the garden, and it's the mention of the garden that helped Digger remember the story and what's going on. And he's like, we've got to go there and warn Jesus. Some point in that conversation, they did establish it was Jesus. I'm pretty sure. Um,
Yes. Yeah,
and
because John
so
Mark says
John
something
Mark is
about
confused.
the
Like,
master and his disciples, and like Digger starts to catch on to like who this is,
yeah,
what's
that's what
going
it
on.
is. But so Digger, I would say he dragged John Mark to the Garden of Gethsemane, except for he didn't actually know where that was, so John Mark had to tell him how to get there. Um,
Yeah, he's like, "You will drag me, or so help me."
yeah.
And I think part of it
But
too
they take
is
him
we've
and
we've established that John Mark wanted to be with the disciples. Like I have a feeling that probably helped
right.
his convincing like Digger being able to get him to go because John Mark wanted to be with him. And remind me, I want to discuss John Mark as a person anyway when we get to the end, but we don't need to do that yet.
Okay. But so they get to the garden, they see Jesus, or as they see Jesus, they get stopped, apprehended, I guess, by temple guards as Judas leads the temple guards to arrest Jesus. Um, John Mark is like, Judas, what are you doing? But yeah, so the temple guards arrest Jesus, led by Judas. Um, and then I think I'm trying to figure out exactly how Digger got away. There's confusion. The Peter thing with him cutting off an ear was maybe in there somewhere, but it's kind of just confusion.
I think it's just the
And Digger
mayhem
also
of the arrest
thinking,
and the disciples getting
yeah,
away and everything allowed John Mark and Digger to get away.
right. But yeah, so they got away, and John Mark takes Digger to the house of the high priest and says that that's where they would question Jesus, and hopefully they would let him go. And so they're listening into the questions and the accusations. And it's worth noting, John Mark mentions that when two of the witnesses, like testimonies, didn't match up, that that should have meant that they weren't valid. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if that gets mentioned all the time when you're reading the story, but I mean, it's it emphasizes that the trial was unfair, which is
Yeah.
kind of the
Something
point too. But
with that, something I noticed all throughout this is the whole episode does a really good job of giving context to the story and also to the Jewish culture of the time without it sounding like they're just explaining to explain. Like they very naturally fit it into
right,
dialogue, like, with that, or later when Pilate's wife in passing says, "Oh yeah, you can't go in the temple because it's a holiday," or at the very end, Mary's like says something to Digger, and she's like, "Oh, it's a very old custom." Like I don't know, they very naturally explain the context of like story context and cultural context without it feeling forced, and I thought that was really
yeah,
well done.
right. So after the testimonies and whatnot, Jesus answers their question about like if he is the Son of God. I think is it Son of God? Is that how they phrase it?
I don't remember. I think so.
I think that's how they phrase it. But regardless, Jesus answers with I am, and that
This
is
this
blasphemy to
cry,
them.
this sticks in my head so much. Where the guy goes, "He speaks blasphemy." Like I don't know why that line really sticks in my
Yeah.
head, but it does.
Yeah, because John Mark explains to Digger like what has just happened because John Mark at this point is even like, well, there's nothing you can do now. It doesn't matter about the testimonies. Like he just
Yeah,
committed blasphemy.
yeah.
It's unclear at this point anyway if John Mark is convinced that he is the Messiah.
I think. I mean, he's definitely intrigued by him because he's so excited they're at his house and he wants to be
Yeah,
one of the disciples. But I think he's probably in the same boat as the disciples were at this point. Because the disciples would have said
that's true.
that they believed he was the Son of God, but they were also still shocked that this happened.
They didn't understand what had to happen. Yeah,
So I think that's where he's
that
at
makes
here.
sense.
And is it this here that
Right.
there's this line? I wrote down a funny line and I can't remember exactly where it is, but John Mark says something and Digger goes, "What's the matter with him?" And John Mark's like, "Oh no, what's the matter with you?"
I
It's
don't know.
somewhere in
I
there.
don't remember
But
that
it's a
line.
funny line. What's the
But
matter with
that's
him?
the end of part one, by the way, with
Yeah.
the blasphemy explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And then part 2 starts with John Mark telling Digger where they'll have to take Jesus next, because since the punishment for blasphemy is death, but the Jews didn't have the authority to kill people because that only the Roman authorities could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think they say that, but that is why. They have to take him to Pilate, and he says there still might be a chance because Jesus hadn't broken any Roman laws, so there was no actual reason for the Romans to go through with killing him.
Mm-hmm.
So Digger, let's see, Digger tries to get to Jesus when they're dragging him out of the high priest's house and is roughly turned away. And then John Mark tells Digger that his mother, John Mark's mother, not Digger's mother, knows Pilate's wife, and that she may be able to get Pilate's wife to convince Pilate to let Jesus go.
Mm-hmm. We also overhear Peter denying Jesus 3 times.
Yes, we do. And the rooster crowed, and that helped them remember what Jesus had said at supper. I mean, it also helped Peter remember, but yeah, so then the story pretty much fast forwards to them talking to Pilate's wife after she had talked to Pilate, and she basically says that she had convinced Pilate to present them a choice, because it was like a custom to release a prisoner on Passover, and so he's going to present a choice to people with like Barabbas, who's this terrible murderer, like someone that should have been in prison for life, or Jesus, who had done nothing wrong by any Roman law. And so they were convinced that that should work out, you know. And also, I think Pilate's wife mentions here that she had had dreams regarding Jesus that had led her to wanting to talk to Pilate about it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't work out how they expected. When the choice is presented to them, the crowd chants for the execution of Jesus and not his release. And Pilate washes his hands of the whole thing. And as Pilate is leaving, Digger is upset and mouths off to Pilate, or I believe as he describes it later, he smarts off to him. Is that what he says?
Yeah. Yeah, he's just smarting off to Pilate.
Yeah. But that lands him in a jail cell. And at the jail cell, he meets a centurion who had had his servant healed by Jesus. And
he also meets this random prisoner.
Barabbas there.
Barabbas, yeah.
Yeah.
I eat rude little boys. Does he say I kill? He doesn't say I eat. He says I kill rude little boys.
Yeah.
He wants to eat Digger's bread.
I think
And he said he killed.
Yeah. But the centurion takes Digger out of prison after he assures the centurion that he has learned respect for Roman law.
Yes, sir, I have. It's like the most polite Digger is this entire episode.
Yeah. And then the centurion takes him to where they will crucify Jesus, the place called the Skull, because Digger thinks that he can still do something. Right.
Yeah, I really like the line.
And,
like, you're free to go, Barabbas. Jesus is taking your place. Like, I don't know, it's a good line.
I didn't pick up on that. That is a good line.
It is a good line. Because we're all in the same boat as Barabbas.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, so the centurion takes Digger to the place called the Skull. They get there as Jesus is calling out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And Digger watches as I think the things that still happened after he got there where they offered him the sour wine. He said it is finished, and he yielded his spirit and died.
Can I just say, at this point...
they mentioned...
At this point, I just want to say, for one, Dave Arnold is the voice actor for Jesus here, and he's doing a phenomenal job. And the sound design, especially of this scene, is phenomenal. Because, like you said, after Digger gets there and it takes over the rest of the scene, there's no more dialogue. We just hear everything happen, and you can feel and hear and like see in your mind everything that's happening. You know, them offering him the sour wine, him dying, things going dark, earthquakes happening, like... You've got it all.
And I think, like they said, they do a good job because, and I think that's the best way to do it, because the less that you have to add to the story keeps it as what we know from the Bible.
Yeah.
And that story, it speaks for itself. It doesn't need we don't need to add to the story of what Jesus did for us. Jesus' sacrifice
Yeah.
is as important. Like you can't make it any more impactful.
Yeah.
If anything, you can make it less impactful by trying to do it too much with it.
Exactly.
And you're right. I think they sound designed it really well.
Yeah, I don't often comment on sound design, and until doing the podcast, I never really thought about the sound design really, but just this scene was very well done.
Yeah, and I agree. I also want to point out, I think this Imagination Station adventure does a good job of limiting the amount of violence that the person would see.
Yeah.
You know, like Digger would have seen Jesus looking very disfigured and bloody and whatnot, but Digger is not present when they whip Jesus. Digger is not present when they hoist him up on the cross. He would not have seen Jesus taking the cross all the way out to the hill. So, like, what he would have still seen would have been disturbing, but the idea is that he would have missed a lot of the gory stuff, I think, is important in terms of, like, you know, what Mr. Whitaker would be showing a kid.
Yeah.
And what,
well,
like,
even
it would make it easier to, like, if you're listening with a kid to like explain kind of what was going on.
It would even apply that the centurion doesn't take him all the way up there. Like, he even watches the last moment of the crucifixion from a distance.
Right. I think that's worth noting too, because I think that's
I never really thought about that, but that is important. Yeah, it's kept child friendly not only for the listener but for the kid in the story.
Right. I had thought more about from like Digger's perspective than I had from the listener, but from the listener too, yeah. As the earthquake happens, as Jesus has yielded his spirit, the centurion that had taken Digger out there is the centurion who says, "Surely this man was the Son of God." And then it's a very moving, emotional moment for Digger, because Digger, throughout the story, has come to understand that Jesus did not do anything wrong. He didn't deserve to die.
Jesus loves him.
In Digger's, Jesus loves him, yes. And in Digger's belief and attempts that he could try to help Jesus, kind of, I'm trying to see if I can word this right, it shows us, like, there was no reason for Jesus to be there, and it's our fault, in a way, that he was there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not Digger's fault that he couldn't help Jesus in the story, but, like, he kind of felt a little bit like it was.
Yeah.
And it helps remind us, like, it's our sin that put Jesus on the cross. It's not anything Jesus did. And so that's, like, Digger helps is understanding this while he's in the Imagination Station. And so I think at this point, Whit is talking to him again, because Digger is in tears and, like, he doesn't understand what he just watched, and, like, and very much as in, like, you see from the disciples in the Bible, like, there is no hope. There is, like, at this point in the story, I'm saying, not after, but, like, Jesus had just died. The person they'd been following for 3 years, the person who had led them, the person who had said all these great things, performed these great miracles, and they had no idea what to do. And Digger's in the same boat, because while Digger did know some of the story, he clearly didn't know the full story or understand the full story. So he doesn't know, like, he doesn't understand what he's supposed to do with what he just saw either. So then Whit is talking to him and says it's okay, like, that's not the end of the story. And Digger's like, well, that has to be the end of the story. And he's like, no, it's not. Let me show you. And so he
and in fact,
shows
he
him
says, for the first time ever in Odyssey, the best part is yet to come.
Oh.
Yeah, which he says part here, and, you know, later the phrase becomes the best is yet to come. But I was like, oh, the first time the mostly phrase is said. I did not realize it was anywhere near this early in the show.
No. When you think about it, though, like, that's a good catchphrase for, not catchphrase, just phrase. Like, it encompasses, like, a lot of the storylines in Odyssey and, like, where characters are going in their lives. But it's also, as a Christian, the best is always yet to come while we're here on Earth. Yeah. And so it's, yeah. Yeah, so Mr. Whitaker shows Digger the story, or the part of the story, where all the disciples, except for Thomas, had seen Jesus at least once. And all these witnesses had already seen Jesus, but they're up in the upper room talking about whether or not they think Jesus has risen, or if they've had dreams, or like what has happened. And pretty much everybody except for Thomas, and to a lesser extent John Mark, because he's not really a part of the conversation, but he is there, and the impression is given that he hadn't seen Jesus either. And so they are like talking about it, and as Thomas is saying that he does not believe, like he's not gonna give in to these imagination or like dreams or whatever, because they need to move on, like he saw Jesus die, and unless he touches the wounds in his side, whatnot, he wasn't gonna believe that Jesus had risen again. And then Jesus appears, says, "Believe." And Thomas touches him and believes, and Jesus says, like, "You have seen and have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." And then the imagination station ends with a really cool moment of Jesus like calling to Digger personally to believe too.
Do you imagine this in your head, that everything else fades out except for Jesus and Digger?
Yeah,
like, that's how it is in my head. Like like everything else like goes black, and all Digger can see left is Jesus. Like everyone else is gone.
Mm-hmm. That's how I see it too, or hear it, listen to it, imagine it. And yeah, the adventure in the imagination station ends, and Whit explains to Jesus, or to Digger, about Jesus, like how if we believe, which Digger does now, like Jesus is always with us. He's there with them right now. And I think it's really cool when once Digger believes, and he's asking Whit what do I do now? He's like, I need to go tell this person and this person and this person. Or I think Whit tells him some people that you got to tell. He's like, but then who do I tell after that? And Whit's like, the whole world, Digger. Tell the whole world. Yeah, that's just a good episode.
Really, yeah, just a lot of really good lines here. Like, obviously, it's the story of Jesus and his death and resurrection and our salvation. It's like, obviously, it's the best story ever. But how the story is done here is really well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is now our
third
really have any salvation
thoughts,
in Odyssey, if you count Freddy. So, which, I mean, he does get saved. I just don't like to count him.
Yeah.
Sorry,
no,
Freddy.
This is a really good episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have any other final thoughts. It's the greatest story, most important story in the history of humanity, and it speaks for itself. Yeah.
I wonder, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I think this is better than the Imagination Station Revisited. Just saying.
Is that the last Imagination Station album before the reset?
Yeah, that's when Kelly goes back and experiences the same story.
Yeah. I was pretty sure that's what the one was.
I feel like this one's better, but...
I mean, that one's good too.
It is good. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's probably just I'm more familiar with this one, so I'm biased, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, I guess that wraps it up. What do we got next week?
Next week, we are going to head back to album 4 for the episode Choices, which is Lucy's assignment conundrum, if you remember that. Also, I think the only episode with Lucy's father. So,
Hal Cunningham?
Yep. Or, I guess, because at this point in time we don't know the whole extent of Lucy's story, it could be her stepdad. But I think it's the only time that a father figure is present. I
think because we haven't got to the best vacation ever or whatever that episode, or like the Barclays staying at home for the summer, right?
Oh yeah, because that one does mention Hal Cunningham, doesn't it? No, we haven't.
Because he mentions Hal Cunningham in that
That's
one.
Right.
So that means that Lucy's dad in that one would have to be Hal Cunningham.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's it this week.
Look forward to that one next week. Thank you for watching and or listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. And we'll see you next week. Follow us and subscribe wherever you get the podcast. See you next time.
Yep. Bye.